Hi, my name is Gary Huskinson and I'll be going over the next few slides. First of all, we look at the network and look at how the network has progressed over the years and how the network will probably look in a couple of years' time. So as you can see from this slide, we have the existing network and we have a power station that produces the electricity, so a big power station like a coal station, and then that goes down to the transmission level and that gets transmitted, if you like, to the distribution network. From the distribution network, we can then power commercial and industrial businesses, but then it also goes down to our LV network, and we can also power our residential consumers as well as small businesses as well. But as you can see from this slide, over the past few years, our network has changed slightly. From different levels, we have wind, solar and energy storage. So we have this at transmission distribution level. They're all providing power for the network. And as you can see, it's already out of date, this slide, because we also have things like EV chargers, and we also have constraint managed zones on the network where they manage the network at certain times of the day, certain times of the year, depending on the load, also if there's any faults, etc. This next slide will go over our team, the Flexible Solutions team, and a little bit of what we do. So way back in 2015, SSEN were one of the first DNOs to have their own dedicated Flexible Solutions team. And the kind of thing we look at is we look at the design of flexible solutions. So we have our own dedicated design team. We have our own delivery team that deliver the flexible solutions that we provide. But not only that, we also have our support team. And what they do is once you get your flexible connection or your connection, we will support and monitor the network to make sure that there's no issues. So it's a lot better than what it used to be, just connect and away we go. Then if there was a fault, you would kind of come to us and we would fix the fault. We are actively looking at the network daily, making sure the flexible solutions are doing what they should be doing, and if there's any problems, we hope to flag them up before, but if not, you can contact our support team. So what kind of flexible solutions do we offer? Well, we offer flexible connections. So I won't go into too much detail about these, but these are A&M active network management. We have an active network manager out in Orkney. We have one in the Isle of Wight, and currently we'll have a large Swans connection, Southwest active network management down the south as well. We look at timed. So we have time connections where you can generate during the day, night, depending on the technology, or at certain parts of the day or night. We also look at third-party active network management. So this would be like a shared capacity where we offset demand, or we look at sharing someone else's capacity on the same constraint part of the network. We also offer flexible services. So we have different types of flexible services. We have sustain, which used to be called prevent. This is where reinforcement is avoided or deferral based on peak lopping forecast demand. We also have secure, which used to be called prepare. This is required to support the network during planned maintenance work. We also have dynamic respond. So this is required to support the network during fault conditions where there are planned outages. And last but not least, we have restore. This is needed to support the network during network faults. We've changed the name slightly over to come in line with other DNOs, but we're all offering roughly the same service. On this slide, we're going to look at the CMZ service types. So here we have sustain, which used to be called prevent, but we've changed the names to come in line with other DNOs. So this one's called sustain. We offer utilization and availability payment. And this is where we look at our network and we do our studies, and it might be that there's reinforcement required, say, for a couple of £1 million. But if we look at the network, there's only a peak on the network due certain times of the day, certain times of the year, certain times of the month. And the rest of the time the network's fine. So we look to procure this service to avoid that reinforcement and maybe defer it to a later date. So this gives us a chance to look at the network in 4 or 5 years' time, so we can then study the network again to see what it's doing. It might be that the network's doing exactly the same and we procure the same service, or that it might be that we decide that the peak is greater, so over a longer period of time, so we might want to reinforce the network. Or it might be in fact that peak's dropped because EV charges might have come on, or the demand might have dropped, generation might have grown. So it might be that peak just no needed, so we don't need the service anymore, or we don't need to reinforce. This is good because it saves the bill per money, so we're not reinforcing that part of the network, spending millions and millions of pounds. We use now network wisely. We're not having to reinforce cables that might have only been in the ground 5 of a 40-year lifespan. These are all good examples of why Sustain is a good product. So again, just to recap, it's a reinforcement avoidance or deferral based on peak lopping forecasting demand. The next product is Secure, which used to be called Prepare. We offer a utilisation and availability payment, and this is required to support our network during planned maintenance work. So this is where we look at our network, where then we identify there's going to be maintenance. So we'd have a maintenance rota, if you like. We look at it, and then we'll ask you to bring on a service so we can plan out, we can do this maintenance, whether you turn up generation or you turn down. The next product is Dynamic. This used to be called Respond. This is where we only offer a utilisation payment. There's no availability payment. So this is required to support the network during fault conditions while there are planned outages. Quite self-explanatory. So when there's a fault and there's a planned outage, we'll ask you to bring on the service. And last but not least, we have Restore. This is where we offer utilisation payment only. And this product is quite good. This is where we look at a fault scenario, or a fault, if you like, on our network, and we'll ask you then to bring on your generation or turn down your demand. So this is a need to support the network during the network faults. So this slide is quite simple. Why do we need flexible services? Well, as I've already mentioned, the networks are becoming more constrained as more DER connects. So there's definitely a need for flexible services there. We need to use what we have more intelligently, effectively, and reinforce where needed. So long gone are the days where we renew a cable that's only been in the ground 5, 10, 15 years of its 40, 50-year lifespan. This is not cost effective. It's also bad for the environment. So if we can use what we've got more efficiently and wisely, it would definitely save the planet and save the bill per money. Transmission and distribution drives the need for these. So transmission and distribution level, they're looking for services that we can bring on so we don't have to reinforce. It's also going to help going into our transition into DSO, and it supports the emerging energy markets and gives you new financial opportunities for DER. So for you, the customer, gives you these opportunities to earn a little bit more money.
Hi everyone, my name is Rhys Penman and I'm a Flexible Solutions Designer. Today I'm going to run through a few slides in today's webinar. The first one being CMZ Progress, which you all should hopefully see on the screen. So in this slide I'm just going to run through some high level figures of our CMZ progress to date. So SSEN currently has over 474 megawatts of CMZ flexible services procured. And this is across our Sustain, Secure, Dynamic and Restore service contracts. So most of this, if not all of it, has came in the last 12 to 18 months. So it kind of shows what a fantastic response we've had to CMZs across both our north and south regions. The next one, we have utilised over 8 gigawatt hours of energy from CMZ so far. However, we do have a couple of CMZs that are used quite regularly, so this figure is always increasing. At the moment, there's around 40 megawatts of CMZ services currently in procurement, so this is obviously something that we are hoping to get over the line in the near future. And using flexible services, we have avoided over 4,200 tonnes of CO2 emissions, and this is compared to using traditional methods such as mobile diesel generation. So moving on to the next slide. I'm just going to run through some of our headlines we've seen from using CMZs within the business so far, highlighting just some of the major benefits. So the first point there, which you would have also seen from the last slide, SSEN have saved over 4,200 tonnes of CO2 emissions compared to using traditional methods. Now I don't have any CO2 equivalent values to date, but I'm sure if you went online and compared that it would be something quite remarkable. We've saved over £230,000 on our first CMZ alone. Again, this is compared to using traditional methods. There is also a financial benefit to the flexible service providers, as there has currently been over £1.6 million paid for CMZ services to be supplied. And lastly, the CMZs are able to support islanded networks for planned outages or for fault scenarios, which we have seen has had a really positive impact, especially as there have been a couple of issues in the north recently for some lengthy outages.
At SSEN, we have been tendering and awarding contracts for CMZ services since 2019 using a one-off tender process for each zone. While this has allowed us to gain experience and apply those learnings to improve the process, it's not been an efficient route to market for numerous contracts. As a regulated business, we are obliged to adhere to existing EU procurement regulations until such time as it's replaced in UK law. As such, the range of tender processes we can follow to award contracts is limited. A dynamic purchasing system, or DPS for short, has been considered to be the best process for awarding the CMZ contracts going forward. A dynamic purchasing system is an EU-regulated procurement process as provided for under the Utilities Contract Regulations, which we must follow. The DPS will form a pre-qualification process for the upcoming CMZ tenders. A contract notice will be issued, following which applicants need to complete a pre-qualification questionnaire on the Delta e-sourcing system. The questionnaire will contain questions marked as pass-fail to ensure that minimum requirements are met. It also includes the industry standard contract for these services for review and agreement. You can submit applications during the initial contract notice period prior to establishing the DPS or at any point following that. However, you can only respond to new tender events once you've passed the pre-qualification assessment. If you fail to pass the PQQ initially, you can continue to resubmit an amended application as many times as necessary to pass. Separate DPSs will be established for SSEN regions in the north of Scotland and central southern England, and suppliers should register accordingly based on the geographical location of their assets. Once the DPS is established, we'll use the Delta e-sourcing system to run tender events for specific zones, and only suppliers that are on the DPS at that time may respond to these. The tender events will consist of a technical and commercial response. The technical response takes the form of a quality questionnaire, which will seek to understand how you provide the services, and the commercial response includes the pricing schedule, along with confirming agreement with the completed zone-specific schedules of the contract. As this is an industry standard contract that all DNOs have been using, then we don't expect any deviations or exceptions to the terms of the contract. However, if you do have any particular questions or concerns, you can submit a question to us as part of the tender process. All bidders that meet the minimum technical requirements based on the quality questionnaire response and agree to the contract terms and conditions will be awarded a contract. We are looking to engage with as many service providers as possible to give us resilience during the contract period. The order in which orders will be issued to suppliers will depend on the total evaluated cost, which is a tendered price adjusted by your quality score. The full details of how this will be calculated will be included as part of the tender documentation.
SSEN has entered into a 5 DNO collaboration to adopt and develop the flexible power system originally developed by Western Power Distribution. This is a flexibility service management system that provides end-to-end functionality from advertising tenders through to scheduling, dispatch and invoicing. The platform has a web portal and API interfaces that enable greater automation and easier operation. SSEN is already advertising its flexibility service requirements on the system and is planning a full launch later in 2021.
SSEN is actively updating its existing flexibility web page to provide better information and visualization on our flexibility services, more interactive mapping functionality, and improved resource to support service providers at all the stages. There will be an improved visibility on our flexible service output, tender information, service utilization. Also, the detail on new opportunities will be clearly displayed alongside the existing information.